name Missouri usually brings to mind the smell of smoky barbecue, quiet lakeside cabins, and peaceful holiday evenings. But hidden within this state are places the locals mention only with hesitation. Towns where time seems to have stopped. Roads where drifting lights belong to no vehicle. And abandoned areas that feel as if the people left in a sudden, desperate rush. If you believe Missouri is simply a calm and safe place to retire, this list may completely rewrite your opinion. Today we're stepping into 10 remote, eerie, and strangely unsettling towns. Places where the silence of the streets hides deep historical scars. And where after nightfall, the stories begin to feel frighteningly real. Number 10, Spencer. Spencer is the kind of town that plays tricks on your eyes the first time you see it. You're driving along old Route 66, wide, endless sky above you, open fields stretching out on both sides. And then, right after a bend in the road, a handful of weathered buildings suddenly rise into view, as if a movie set was accidentally left behind in the real world. A tiny gas station with pumps that look more like museum pieces, a stone-built storefront straight out of the 1930s, and a barbershop so old-fashioned you'd almost expect your grandfather to step outside and say, "So how short do you want your haircut?" A little farther ahead, a narrow iron bridge leans over a creek, the kind that looks like someone lifted it from an old black and white film and quietly placed it here. In the daytime, the whole scene feels almost warm, nostalgic. The Route 66 sign, the empty sidewalks, and that strange, peaceful stillness that makes you take out your phone and snap a picture. But behind the charm lies a completely different truth. Spencer's entire life depended on one road. And when the highway was rerouted in the 1960s, the town's heartbeat simply stopped. No factory closure, no disaster, no great tragedy, just a shift in a line on a map, and an entire community fell silent. The buildings stayed. The cafe sign stayed. The pumps remained standing unused, and the people left. Years later, when footsteps finally returned, they weren't families or travelers. They were vandals, thrill-seekers, and destroyers. After 2015, locals found smashed windows, shattered displays, and interiors torn apart simply because some people enjoy breaking what time has already forgotten. Now imagine Spencer at night. The road narrows into something that feels like a single thread. The sound of water under the bridge isn't calming, it's haunting. The windows of the old buildings reflect your headlights for a brief, uneasy moment. Then they disappear into total darkness again. When the wind passes through the rusted metal signs, it makes a slow, hollow sound, like someone quietly breathing. This place doesn't feel abandoned. It feels paused, as if someone pressed pause in 1955, and no one ever found the remote again. The real question isn't what's here. The real question is, would you stop here at 11 p.m., when your phone signal is barely holding on, and there isn't another human soul for miles? Number 9, Phoenix. Phoenix was never the kind of town that history books speak of with affection. It wasn't really a town at all. It was more like a quarry wearing the disguise of a community, a place where people and machines breathed in the same rhythm, until one of them finally stopped. There was a time when the stone extracted from these hills traveled farther than the people who carved it. It became banks, courthouses, city sidewalks, grand facades, structures meant to outlast generations. Back then, the name Napoleon Gray carried pride. Imagine it, the sidewalk beneath your feet, the cold wall of a cathedral as you rest your hand on it, the towering columns of a courthouse, all of it built from the shimmering gray rock quarried right here. But Phoenix never lived for itself. It belonged entirely to the company that fed off it. When the plant roared to life, you could feel the pulse of machinery across the entire valley. Railroad tracks ran behind people's homes. Flat cars rumbled through with stones stacked to the sky, and the air carried a constant vibration, an industrial heartbeat. A faded photograph still survives. Under it, a single handwritten line, "Worker struck by train." That's all. As if a human life was worth no more than a brief note on a scrap of paper. Then the world changed. The economy soured. Buildings stopped going up, and during the war years, steel suddenly became more valuable than stone. So they tore up the rails and sold them. They hauled the machines to other towns. And the workers left, not because they wanted to, but because life could not be built on a rock that no one wanted anymore. Today, Phoenix exists in a surreal contradiction. The quarry still operates. Dust rises in slow clouds. The ground trembles with machinery, and a low metallic hum lingers in the air like a ghost refusing to leave. But around it? Nothing. Only cracked foundations where homes once stood. Fragments of walls leaning at impossible angles. Streets that exist now only on old maps and in fragile memories. It feels as if the town has been kept alive, just long enough for its remaining pieces to be picked clean. If you ever go there to take photos, remember this. Phoenix isn't a ghost town. It's a living industrial organism, one that has quietly consumed everything around it. And it doesn't expect strangers. Number 8, Hornet, Missouri. One of the most famous, most studied, and yet most unexplained mysteries in all of Missouri is seen right here, the legendary Joplin Spook Light. Hornet was once a tiny, harmless-looking settlement. Simple wooden homes, narrow dirt roads, windows that once glowed with lamplight and family chatter. But now, only the whistle of the wind through the trees remains. The village itself isn't the source of fear. The real terror lies just outside it. Along a long, empty stretch locals whisper about Spook Light Road. The first sightings began in the late 1880s. A glowing, floating orange orb that appeared at night, never coming too close, never drifting too far away, just silently following whoever dared drive down the road. The light wasn't small. Some nights it appeared the size of a light bulb, and on other nights, as large as a human head. Thousands of people have witnessed it over the decades, yet almost every time someone tries recording it, the light vanishes as if it knows. Locals have passed down 3 chilling explanations. A Theory 1, the lantern of the lost miner. They say a miner who died in a deadly rockslide still roams the hills, searching for his fellow workers, carrying his lantern through the darkness. A Theory 2, the Native American ghost lovers. 2 young Native lovers, killed for defying their tribes, are said to wander endlessly, their spirits appearing as a single roaming light, trying to reunite. Theory 3, an interdimensional rift. Some researchers argue the spook light is a rare energy signature from another dimension, slipping into ours only when conditions align. But one encounter stands above all others. 2 friends once parked their car on Spook Light Road late at night. Through the rear window they spotted an orange dot, motionless at first, then drifting closer, slowly, silently, deliberately, they claim. The light came right up to the car window, and then, like a human eye, it blinked once, and disappeared. That was the moment they vowed never to return. To Hornet After Dark. Number 7, Old Pattonsburg, Missouri. In the northern reaches of Missouri, where rolling green hills fade into swampy lowlands, there once stood a town shaped and destroyed by the cruelty of nature. Its name was Old Pattonsburg. Walk through it today and you'll feel as if time itself abandoned this place. Collapsed wooden frames, hollow windows staring into nothing, and roads swallowed by grass, mud, and a silence that doesn't feel natural. But the fall of Old Pattonsburg wasn't caused by disease, war, or economic collapse. It was drowned. Not once, but twice. The first drowning, 1976. On a violent night in 1976, the skies opened with a fury no one expected. Rain hammered the land for hours, and the nearby river swelled beyond its limits. Then suddenly, the river surged toward the town. First the streets disappeared, then the markets, then the rooftops went under. Residents believed it was a freak disaster, a once-in-a-lifetime flood, but they were wrong. It was only the first warning. The second drowning, 1993, the final blow. The flood of 1993 was one of the worst in Missouri's history. This time, the water didn't just flood Old Pattonsburg, it erased it. Houses floated away like toy blocks. Entire neighborhoods vanished beneath black, churning water. Helicopters pulled survivors off their own roofs, and when the water finally receded, the town looked post-apocalyptic. A tractor driver later recalled, "When I came back, my entire neighborhood looked like it had been cut out of the earth and removed. Only mud, splintered wood, and complete silence were left." That was the breaking point. The government made the decision. Old Pattonsburg would never be rebuilt. The survivors were relocated 3 miles away, to a safer, higher ground settlement. New Pattonsburg, and the old town, left behind, to rot, to sink, to be reclaimed by water, wind, and time. But the drowned city didn't stay silent. What settled there afterward wasn't human. Urban explorers say that when they wander the decaying remains of old Pattonsburg, they often hear the drip, drip, drip of water in places where no water exists. Some claim, at night, a faint glow flickers through broken windows, as if someone has lit a lantern inside. But the most chilling encounter happened to two young explorers around 1 a.m. They were filming near the old school building. Through the classroom window, they saw two dark shapes moving slowly across the room. When they rushed inside, the room was empty. No open doors, no broken windows, but the floor, wet, as if someone, or something, had walked through water only seconds before. Were these just memories trapped in soaked earth, echoes of a town washed away? Or were they the spirits of people who once called this drowned city home and never truly left? Number 6, Indian Ridge Resort. In the heart of Missouri, perched high on a sprawling ridge, there lies a place that, at first glance, looks like the remains of a wealthy kingdom. Long, empty roads curve up the hills, massive driveways climb into silence, and an unsettling stillness hangs in the air, as if the land itself remembers what happened here. This is Indian Ridge Resort, the $1.6 billion dream that died. Once envisioned as the grandest, most luxurious resort in the United States. Thousands of acres, hundreds of homes, a world-class water park, a 5-star hotel, private golf courses, and hilltop mansions overlooking the Ozark Mountains. This wasn't a fantasy. Construction began. The dream was real, until the mountains swallowed it whole. Otherwise, a billionaire's promise. Back in 2006, the project shook the entire state of Missouri. Newspapers, TV stations, real estate firms, and everyone was talking about it. Some even claimed, this will be the Dubai America. Developers announced a $1.6 billion investment, and people believed the hype. Investors poured in, land prices skyrocketed, families put their life savings into what they thought would become the future jewel of the Midwest. Soon foundations were poured across the hills. Some houses even had walls and roofs. From a distance it looked like paradise taking shape. But paradise is fragile. The fall, fraud, scandal, and total collapse. Whispers began circulating. Funds were missing. Construction slowed. Workers weren't being paid. And then, the FBI arrived. The investigation uncovered a massive fraud. Developers had falsified financial documents, faked investments, and siphoned millions of dollars from hopeful buyers. The glamorous luxury resort was actually one of the biggest real estate scams in Missouri history. In June 2012, the developers were arrested. Construction stopped. Money dried up. Workers vanished. And the mansions slowly transformed into corpses. The abandoned mansions, Disneyland of ghost houses. Today, the hills of Indian Ridge Resort are littered with half-built mansions, windowless towers, empty master bedrooms, of staircases leading nowhere, doors that were never painted, entire streets of hollow skeletal houses. It looks like someone hit pause in the middle of construction and never returned. Urban explorers call it the Disneyland of abandoned mansions. During the day, the place feels dead, frozen, unnaturally quiet. But at night, something changes. Many explorers report hearing footsteps in the silence, as if someone is walking behind you. But when you turn around, nobody is there. Some even swear they heard children laughing inside the empty houses. But no children ever lived here. No one ever did. So where do the voices come from? Number 5, Avila, Missouri. On the map of Missouri, Avila looks like nothing more than a tiny dot. But in reality, it is the heart of a blood-soaked history. A village carved out by war, revenge, cruelty, and shadows that still refuse to leave. Today, Avila is half alive, half abandoned. Some houses still have families. Some stand broken and collapsing, and some are so dark and silent that you don't even feel safe looking through their windows. But Avila isn't known for its ruined houses. Its true identity stands on the northern edge of the town, a tree that has witnessed more deaths than the cemetery nearby, the death tree. The hanging tree of Missouri. Civil War, the origin of the curse. In the 1860s, Avila was caught in the middle of the Civil War. Both Union and Confederate soldiers passed through often, but far more dangerous than the armies were, the bald knobbers, a notorious vigilante group that believed law was meaningless unless it was in their hands. Their favorite place for punishment? The death tree. Witnesses from that time claimed that dozens were hanged here. At night, without trial, without mercy. The town still whispers, if you pass the tree on a moonlit night, you can see silhouettes dangling from the branches. The ghost rider of Avila Road. Avila's most terrifying legend is about a man whose death failed to release him from this world. The story is known as the Headless Horseman of Avila Road. During the Civil War, a traveler was falsely accused of being a spy for the enemy. The bald knobbers captured him and executed him beneath the death tree. But before killing him, they decapitated him. Soon after his death, riders and travelers began reporting something impossible. A deep red horse running along the northern roads, carrying a rider with no head. He follows cars that pass through at night. And the most horrifying detail, if you stop your vehicle, the rider appears outside your window, his clothes dripping with blood. Skeptics call it a myth, but dozens of drivers have submitted reports to local police. Something was chasing us down the road. But when we stopped, there was nothing. The death tree, strange incidents. For decades, explorers and locals have observed disturbing phenomena around the tree, so birds never sit on it. The entire forest is alive with birds, yet not a single one lands on the death tree, as if they instinctively know to avoid it. The two, sudden temperature drop, approach the tree, and the air turns cold instantly. Paranormal explorers claim they could see their breath, even in the middle of summer. 3 whispering voices. Many report hearing faint whispers below the branches, like several people murmuring at once, as if reciting something and together. 4 footsteps behind you. Visitors say they hear footsteps following them toward the tree, but when they turn around, there is nothing but silence. Number 4, Times Beach, Missouri. There is a place in Missouri that you can search for on the map, and you still won't find it, because this town was erased on purpose. The houses were demolished, the streets were destroyed, and even the name itself was wiped out of official records. This place was Times Beach, or the Toxic Ghost Town, a town where life was once completely normal. Children played, families laughed, porch lights glowed at night, until the day everything was turned inside out. And the force that destroyed this town wasn't a monster, a ghost, or a shadow. No, Times Beach was murdered by poison. A poison that transformed it in a single moment into America's most poisoned town. And it all began because of one truck driver. At the beginning, a deal that destroyed a town. In the 1970s, Times Beach faced a simple but troublesome issue. The soil was loose. The unpaved roads were constantly filled with dust. People complained. Kids disappeared into clouds of dirt while playing, and every storefront was coated in a layer of gray powder. Then a man arrived. Russell Bliss, a local waste oil sprayer. He sprayed waste oil on dirt roads to keep the dust down. It was cheap, simple, and the entire town hired him. But Bliss made a decision that changed the fate of Times Beach forever. He began mixing industrial chemical sludge into the waste oil. A company had given it to him for almost nothing, because it was toxic waste. The chemical's name was dioxin, one of the deadliest substances on Earth. Even in tiny amounts, dioxin destroys the human body from inside, causing cancer, liver disease, birth defects, and every kind of long-term devastation. And Bliss sprayed this poison across every road in Times Beach. People thought he was controlling the dust, but in reality, he was killing the town. The first signs, animals dying. The first victims were horses, then birds, then family pets. Children became sick, strange fevers, skin rashes, and a cough that wouldn't go away. Doctors were confused. Families were terrified, but no one realized that the real danger was beneath their feet, the very roads they walked on every day. The discovery in your town is toxic. In 1982, an investigator collected soil samples from Times Beach. When he saw the results, he froze. The dioxin levels were so high that a person simply standing there could suffer chemical burns on their skin. The government declared, "This place is no longer safe for human life." Then came the announcement that made national headlines. Times Beach will be evacuated, permanently. It was the first time in U.S. history that an entire town was condemned for being too toxic to exist. Number 3. The Phantom House on the Black Highway. Far away from crowded nights, far from the glow of the cities, lies a stretch of highway that locals only refer to in whispers. The Black Highway. It isn't famous because of its length, but because of one structure standing silently beside it, a burned, decayed wooden frame of a house whose windows sometimes flicker, with a faint golden glow, and then the very next second, nothing, as if nothing ever existed there at all. People call it the Phantom House, because those who see it either mistake it for an illusion, or their lives change forever. We begin number 3 with The Phantom House, the home that only appears to those it chooses. This story begins in 2004 when 3 friends, Jerry, Matthew, and Nori, were driving through the darkness on this lonely stretch of highway. The road was empty for nearly 40 miles. No traffic, no lights, only the deep whistling wind. Nori, sitting in the front seat, suddenly pointed ahead. On the left. There's a house. Where is that light coming from? Matthew slowed the car. Sure enough, in the pitch-black darkness stood a rotting wooden house, and from one of its windows, a pale yellow light was flickering gently, as if a lantern was burning inside. But the problem was this. For 20 years, there had been no houses on that highway. The state registry listed the entire stretch as an abandoned empty zone. This house wasn't supposed to exist. Jerry, the driver, whispered, "Hold on, nothing ever stands here. I've driven this road 100 times, but the light was still there. And strangely, it wasn't flickering. It was calling." Seeing the first sign, the shadow in the window, the 3 friends pulled over. The wind began to rise. The silence felt sharp, almost painful. Nori looked toward the window first, and he saw a shadow standing inside, a figure, with no body, just a dark silhouette, as if someone stood behind the glass. Nori stumbled back. "Someone's inside!" Matthew and Jerry stared hard, but they saw nothing. This was the Phantom House's first rule. The house never appears the same way to everyone. It reveals the truth only to the one it chooses. The second sign, the house speaks. As the 3 friends turned to go back to their car, a loud sound echoed from inside the house, like a door slamming shut with impossible force. There were no people for miles. So who made that sound? Suddenly, the yellow glow inside the window went dark. The whole house sank into pitch black. And then a thin stream of white smoke drifted out of the window, quiet, slow, as if something inside had burned, and was finally escaping. Nori screamed, "Let's go! We shouldn't be here!" They jumped into the car and sped away as fast as they could. Number 2, The Vanishing Woman of Silver Lake Tunnel. In the quiet, dust-covered corner of an old, forgotten town, where the trees grow so tall their branches seem to scrape the sky, there lies a narrow, damp passageway known only as Silver Lake Tunnel. During the day it looks harmless, a simple moss-coated tunnel, smelling of wet stone and cold earth. But at night, this tunnel becomes something else entirely. The air turns heavy. The walls seem to shift. Shadows move where no light exists. And the most terrifying part? People often hear a woman whispering from deep inside, "Wait, don't leave me." For decades, locals have spoken of a figure who appears and disappears right before their eyes. They call her the Vanishing Woman of Silver Lake Tunnel. The woman who appears, but never truly leaves. The story began on a freezing winter night in 1999. 2 friends, Alex and Mark, were driving through the area. Their car radio suddenly shut off on its own, and a faint mist drifted across the road. Alex looked out the window and whispered, "Dude, I think someone is standing ahead." Mark laughed, until the car reached the middle of the tunnel, because right there, illuminated in the headlights, stood a woman. She wore a completely white dress, her hair soaking wet as though she had risen straight out of water, and her face was blurred like it didn't belong to a living person. Alex slammed the brakes. The woman stepped forward, and her voice cut through the cold like broken glass. "Please, don't go." Fear number 1, her disappearing legs. Mark stared closely, and his blood froze. The lower half of her body was fading into the mist, not just faint, dissolving, as if she was slowly being erased from existence. Alex gasped, "Bro, she isn't touching the ground." And she wasn't. She floated, weightless, silent, unreal. Only the upper part of her body remained solid, shivering in her wet clothes. Fear number 2, the sudden blast of ice-cold air. Mark lowered the window and asked, "Ma'am, are you okay? What are you doing here?" Before the question even finished, a violent wave of freezing air blasted through the tunnel. The windshield fogged instantly. The car's temperature gauge dropped in one sharp jerk. The woman started smiling. But it wasn't a human smile. It held no warmth. Just emptiness. Alex whispered, "Mark, drive now!" The final truth revealed later. A week later, police documents resurfaced about a case from 1993. A woman named Ella Miranda had been in a car accident inside that very tunnel. The vehicle had plunged into the water. Her husband's body was recovered, but Ella was never found. Locals believe Ella is still searching for her husband. On every car that enters the tunnel, she thinks it's him returning. And when she realizes it isn't, she dissolves back into the mist. That is why she is known as the woman who leaves no footprints. Number 1, the Hollow Man of Dead Pine Forest. Most haunted places in the world share a few unsettling signs. The disappearance of light, the rise of unnatural silence, and that heavy choking pressure in the air. That tells you one simple truth. You are not safe here. Dead Pine Forest is exactly that kind of place. A forest where the branches hang unnaturally low. The ground is always damp, and the birds refuse to fly inside. This place has only one rule. If you see it, it sees you. Dead Pine Forest is infamous because of one entity, a moving shadow, a shape without shape, a body without bones, known simply as the Hollow Man. We begin with number 1, the Hollow Man. The first reported encounter dates back to 1985. 4 campers, Rawson, Peter, Emily, and Carter, decided to spend 2 nights deep inside Dead Pine Forest. The first night passed quietly. They lit a fire, told stories, shared laughs. But the second night changed everything. Scene 1. The thing standing between the trees. At 2 a.m., Carter heard something. Light, dragging footsteps outside their tent. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out. The moment the beam hit the woods, he froze. A tall, bent, impossibly thin figure stood between the trees, but its body was wrong. Its legs weren't straight. They curved inward unnaturally, as though they had been folded the wrong way. Its spine looked cracked, like it had snapped in two at some point, and its face wasn't a face at all. Just a dark hollow, a deep sunken void, where a skull should have been. Carter stared, paralyzed. Then the thing moved. Not like a human. It tilted 45 degrees to the left, paused, then snapped upright and tilted to the right, without a single sound, as if it were made of cloth, not bone. A second sign, the imitated voice. Peter rushed out of the tent. He shouted, "Carter, back away from it!" But the moment he finished speaking, his own voice echoed from deep inside the forest. "Carter, back away from it!" Same tone, same pitch, same breath pattern, but coming from far within the trees. This was Hollow Man's darkest ability. Click and copy any voice it hears. Perfectly. On scene 3, the shadow appears inside the camp. Before either of them could react, the shadow didn't run. It didn't walk. It simply vanished and reappeared in the middle of their campsite. Emily screamed and fell backward, her lantern dropping to the ground. The light hit the creature's torso, revealing long, sharp claw marks across its chest, as if something inside it had tried to rip its way out. The shadow drifted closer. Its feet didn't touch the ground. It hovered a few inches above the soil, gliding silently, and then suddenly, the forest stopped breathing. No wind, no insects, no distant rustling. Dead Pine Forest had gone dead silent.